All right. Hello, everybody. Let's learn how to EQ a podcast. Now, we're going to equalize the audio of a podcast. We're essentially equalizing our audio for the human voice. So that's what we're going to learn today. I'm going to show you some really great techniques specifically for podcasts to make your audio sound amazing. So first of all, let's look at my podcast setup here. Our podcast setup, which you may have seen, has 4 microphones and 4 headphones. So there's no, loudspeakers out here that's going to create an echo or anything. Each one of these microphones is coming into our digital audio mixer, and that is where we are going to EQ our solution. Now, besides EQing, we also will talk about adding a compressor, and we're going to talk about adding a noise gate, but that will be in future videos. Today, we're talking about how to EQ a podcast. Now, what you're looking at right here is a male voice. Female voices are a little bit different, and that's something to consider because female voices range from 175 to 1180 hertz, and male voices are actually much lower. They range from 80 to 500. So, of course, we're all over the map, but that's where the bulk of it is. So, we're going to talk about how to add a high-pass filter, which is going to cut everything below the human voice. The human voice generally does not go below 80 hertz, so that would get rid of some of the low hums, maybe traffic outside, maybe a low buzzing from your computer. We can cut between 100 and 300 to add clarity, and we'll show you how to do that. We can cut 300 to 400 if the voice sounds muddy, if it's not really crisp. And we can also do a wide boost between 2 to 6 hertz to improve clarity. And then we can cut around 3 to 5 hertz if the voice sounds too sibilant, if there's too much hissing and popping. And then beyond that, we're going to show you how to add VST3 plugins as well to really spice up your podcast, but that will also be in a future video. So here's our high pass filter here. A high pass essentially gives a pass to anything past a certain point. So it only affects everything this way. And you can set a specific curve for your high pass filter. Now we know that the human voice does not really go anywhere below 80. So we can go ahead and cut most of that off and really improve the sound of our audio. A low pass filter does the exact opposite. We can take a certain area, which is usually high frequency, like hums and things of that nature. We can just cut them out with a low pass filter. So you really, at a minimum, want to have a high pass filter and a low pass filter. Now, if you're using a VST3 plugin to do this, I still suggest doing a very low and minimal high pass and low pass filter. Now, when we're done EQing, which I'm going to step you through the entire process, your EQ may look something like this. I've got a high pass filter. I'm cutting a little bit of the 200 and 300 range. I'm bumping up in between the 1 and 3000 K range, and then I'm coming back down with a high pass filter there. That's what it looked like for me when I was tuning for our podcast. Yours may sound different depending on the microphones you have and the people you're working with. So first thing I'm doing here is I'm adding a high pass filter. And you can see that there. I can choose the frequency and I can choose the width of that curve. So we're coming up to 80 hertz where the human voice generally, stops. And then we're going up to the high pass filter here, and we are going to go ahead and cut that. Just a brief cut at the top levels between 10,000 and 20,000. We'll get rid of some. You'll be surprised how much high pitched noises that you're no longer hearing once you start doing that. Now, our specific digital audio mixer, the Ashley Digimix 18, which is one of the best, most affordable digital mixers in its class that doesn't require an iPad to do all of the settings. This is actually a 7-inch touchscreen that I'm using here. Allows us to do what's called a parametric EQ. So we have a low pass, a high pass, and then 4 specific basically levels, frequencies that we can cut. And so there's a frequency that you can choose. There's a Q, which is the size of the cut, and then the gain is how much we're going to either boost or cut that space. So I'm going to do a minimal cut around the 200, 100, between 100 and 300. You can see there, just a little cut to boost the clarity. Then we're going to go in the 350 hertz range, and we're just going to do a little bit of a cut if in case the voice sounds muddy. You may not need to do that. This is completely up to you. And then we're going to do a minimal boost up in the 2,000 to 3,000 range. And this is just, you're watching me here now do these cuts and boosts, and you're essentially seeing what it's like to operate a digital audio mixer and create a EQ specifically for the human voice. This is for podcasting. So I'm going to do a little boost here and move everything up. So that is what an EQ looks like. You highly need to be wearing a headset. And then really quickly, I just wanted to go over this just so you have some basic knowledge of what everything is doing here. So first of all, between the 80 and 100 ranges, you are going to be hearing the fundamentals of human voice. And it's very important for intelligibility. So this is a really important area. Next, in between 200 and 300 here, that's where the boom of the voice is. That's where you get your fullness. So we don't usually do a huge cut here, but just a little bit can help with clarity. Then between 300 and 1000, this is where you're going to hear the reflections of the room. So by tweaking this just a little bit, you can make the room feel smaller, and you can really make the whole sound feel more expensive. Finally, between 2 and 3,000, this is where you are going to be able to add clarity to the voice. That's why we did a little bit of a boost there. Generally, a telephone call maxes out at about 3 kilohertz. Now, between 5 and 15, that is where what we call sibilance. That's where really the essence of like a high-pitched vocal or something that really has that hiss and the hum and the things that you really enjoy about your favorite vocalist, that's where it happens. Now, anything above 1500, we do not need. So I could probably even do a stronger low-pass filter there to get rid of it. But you'd be surprised just by adding the high-pass and low-pass filters how much better your audio will sound. If you don't want to dig into really cutting a bunch of this, I understand. This is more for really listening to your podcaster and trying to figure out exactly how to tune the EQ. If you just want to put a high pass and a low pass, that's going to do a ton. And then I'm going to introduce you in a further video to VST3 plugins, which will automatically load presets for males and females and manage the EQing process so that you don't have to be a audio engineering expert to really leverage a lot of this technology. That's what's so great about VST3 plugins. We'll be talking about that in a next video. So that's it, guys. Let's move on to using a compressor and using a noise gate to really enhance your podcasting experience.